Okay, so for the next section, we're going to go and create a web application that's going to be able to display these results. So this data that we have in Cosmos, it's not the easiest way to look at it. So what we're going to deploy is a web application that's going to visualize and show these results in a nice way. So to do that, similar to as we did at the beginning, we're going to come up to Create Resource. So up on the top left there, click on Create Resource, come into Web, and we see Web App. So this is a platform as a service offering in Azure to basically host, without needing any virtual machines, directly host a web application in Azure. So we go ahead and create one of those. So there's a little bit of configuration we need to do. The first thing is to give the site a unique name, similar to the Cosmos DB account. This has to be globally unique. It's in public DNS. So it's a good idea to use something like your initials, and we could say Vision Lab Web. And what we're looking for is this green tick as before. We should leave the subscription as before. We want to make sure we put it in the existing resource group. So click Use Existing, put it into Vision Lab. Don't worry about the other settings, but we do need to worry about the app service plan. So this is what's going to host the web application. This is the compute or the resources that backs up our web application. What we're going to do is create a free plan to save some costs. So what we're going to do is click on that and then click on Create New App Service Plan. And we're prompted for a name of our plan. This doesn't matter, so we'll just simply call it Free Plan. The location is important. We need to change this. It seems to default to Central US, so we want to change this to North Europe, where we'll be doing the rest of our resources. And then we want to click on Pricing Tier to change the pricing tier. So we don't want to pay the standard rates. We're going to host a very lightweight web application. So what we're going to do, these tabs at the top are different sort of grades of application you might want to host. If I click on Dev and Test, I get some very cheap options, including the cheapest of all, which is the free tier. So this is going to run on shared infrastructure for very lightweight, not intensive applications, which is perfect for what we need. So click on the F1, click on Apply. We see these details here updated. So we simply click on OK. We're taken back here. This now says Free Plan, North Europe, and we can go ahead and click Create. So that's going to go off and deploy both that plan and more importantly the web application for us to be able to host our application. So what our application is written in Node.js. It's been pre-written by myself. It's a very lightweight, simple application that's going to take that data out of Cosmos and render it on the page. So that information is all on GitHub, and this is a link here. I have to zoom in a little bit if you're going to make a note of that. So we're going to need to go there to get the URL of the Git repository when we're going to deploy our web application. So we'll come back there in a moment, but just be aware that aka ms vision-lab will take you to the GitHub project. So I can click on notifications here. I can see that my web application has been deployed. If I go into Vision Lab, we can see now I have BC Vision Lab Web App Service. So this is our web application. That's that we need to click into. And we're taken to the main page for web applications, or what's called app services in Azure. So if we were to visit the site right now, there wouldn't be anything there. We haven't deployed anything of the application. So what we need to do is set some configuration up, set some details up to, first of all, configure the application so it can connect to Cosmos, and then we're going to deploy that Git project to this web app. So to configure things, first of all, we're going to come down a little bit and come into app settings, application settings, this little section here. There's going to be a lot of settings when you come in here. You can ignore all of these, don't need to change anything, and just scroll down a little bit to this application settings section. And down here underneath website no default version, which we can ignore, we need to add a bunch of new settings for our web application. So the first one is called DB name, and that's the name of our Cosmos DB. And if you remember, that was called my DB. Let me just try zooming in here. That should make things a little bit easier. So DB underscore name, all in uppercase, value my DB. Another setting, DB underscore collection, and this is the photos when we're storing those that collection we were looking at a moment ago. Another setting is the DB underscore endpoint, all lowercase, all uppercase, and we need to get the value from the notepad where we were storing information, our text file earlier. So if we come into here, I still have the details of my Cosmos DB, and I want to take that copy of that, come back to Azure and put that in as the value of DB endpoint. So it should look something like documents.azure.com. We need to add another setting for the key, DB underscore key. Come back to our note file, get the key. It should be quite long, and place that into the key value. One more setting and we're done. So click new setting one last time and add project. So this is so when we deploy the application, it knows where in the Git repository to be deployed. So we've actually got our web application in a subfolder inside that Git repository called web app. So we can zoom back out now. So the key thing is there's 5 new settings: DB name, DB collection, DB endpoint, DB key, and one more called project. It's going to be the same for most people. DB name is going to be my DB. DB collection is going to be photos. DB endpoint is going to be the URL of your Cosmos DB, and that's going to be different for everybody. Your DB key is going to be unique, and project should always be web app. Okay, the important thing now is to click on save, and it updates these settings. So the very last thing we need to do is actually deploy this web application. And to do that, we're going to get the Git repository that we're going to use. So I'm going to jump back to the dashboard here, and I've got this link to the Akka MS Vision Lab. Open that in a new tab. This is the Git repository that stores the web application. So the only piece of information we need from here is this Git URL. So if you click on the green button, if you've never used GitHub before, over on the right hand side there's a big green button, you can't really miss it, with clone URL, and then you can click copy to copy that URL to your clipboard. So we'll be using that in a second. So coming back to Azure, coming back to our resource group, coming back to Vision Lab, and coming back into our web application. So we're back to where we were a moment ago. We want to come into the deployment center. So when we click on Deployment Center, it's going to prompt us for where we're going to deploy from. So we're deploying from a Git repository. Don't be tricked into using GitHub, because that's actually going to be trying to use your own personal GitHub repository. You need to use external, which is down at the bottom in here, where you can put a Git URL. So we click on external, click continue. We're going to use the built-in build server built inside into app service, which is called Kudu. We're using a full DevOps pipeline, and VSTS is obviously way out of scope for what we're trying to do here today. So this is where we need to place that URL. So I'll just zoom in again here. In the repository, has to be github.com/benc-uk, and it's serverless-cosmos.lab.git is the URL. You can get that from that AKAMS URL that we clicked on a moment ago. But that's the final URL that we need to put in there. The branch needs to be master, and the repository type needs to be Git. So we can click on continue, click on finish, and that will set up the build provider and deploy the code that's hosted on GitHub straight into this web application. So you're taken to this screen to sort of see the status of what's going on. In a few seconds it will update and it will say it's generating the deployment script. You can see any of the messages from when I've checked in code to this repository. And it probably takes around 20 seconds, 30 seconds for it to run through that deployment. Much quicker than I thought. So we can see the deployment's successful, and the green tick means everything, blue tick rather, everything has been deployed cleanly. So how do we get to the site? If we come back to the overview, you'll see at the top here we'll have the URL of our web application. So that will be the name of the web app that you gave it, followed by Azure websites.net. So we can click on that and that should open in a new tab with the deployed web application connected to Cosmos DB. So we can see the results in there. So that was from that test tweet that came through a moment ago. You can send some additional test tweets, wait for the logic app to fire or force the logic app to fire, and you should see them come through to this website. You'll simply just have to refresh the page. And that's the end.